Hello everyone, happy Pi Day. Welcome to another edition of my YouTube channel, Data Science with Sam. In this video, I'll conclude the logistic regression series. In my previous video, I talked about how you can perform logistic regression using R programming language. I showed you that how you can perform R programming language to classify an email category, whether it's spam or non-spam, that you can easily classify using that R technique. Now I'm going to show you how you can apply the similar supervised learning technique using Python. Because Python is a very popular language, a lot of Python programmers will be curious to know how they can apply logistic regression using Python. So let's get started. So this is a Jupyter notebook where I'm going to perform the logistic regression exercise. At the beginning, I need to import some key libraries which are useful for this exercise. So first three libraries are related to data preprocessing or data loading purpose, followed by there are two different libraries that I need to import. So one is count vectorizer, that's useful to convert the text message to a matrix count format, which is useful for the prediction purpose. And the last one is basically the scikit linear model library that will give you the logistic regression model that you're going to run it through the exercise. So after you import the libraries, then the next step is to load the data. So you're using the pandas read_csv function to load the data. So as you can see, this particular data set has two columns. The first column, text, it contains the subject body of all the emails. And the next column is spam, which is kind of like an identifier. If it is 1, that means that email is spam. If it is 0, that means non-spam. Moving on to the next item, let's check it out how many columns are there. So as you can see, there are only 2 columns there I mentioned earlier. And let's check out the shape of that particular data set. So as you can see, after dropping some duplicates, the shape comes into, it's like 56,095 rows, and there are 2 corresponding columns. The next thing is that you need to basically remove all the stop words from the subject body. So for that, I already preloaded some stop word list. And then after that, I'm running a function called process_text. What it is doing is basically removing all the punctuation, all the stop words from the main data set. So after running the pre-processing step, you can see all the subjects are kind of dragged into different matrix format. So now it's easier for the model to invoke those matrix of different emails and then convert into count vectorize. So that's what I'm doing in the next step. So I'm basically converting all the text message into to their corresponding matrix format. Now, the next part is to do the train and test split. As you know, we usually go with the 80% or 20% philosophy. So in that case, we will basically train the model with 80% of the data set, and the rest 20% data set will be used for prediction purpose. So after I split the data set into train and test format, the next step is to run the model. As I showed you earlier, that we basically use this linear model library from scikit-learn module to get the logistic regression function. So that logistic regression function will be used over here to build a model. So now this spam_classifier is kind of like our model. So now we're going to use that model to predict the spam or non-spam classifier of the trained data set. So let's run this one. So as you can see, the initial 3 values are 0 and the last 3 values are also 0. So that means those 6 emails are actually non-spam. So now let's try to match it with the actual values. So the actual values are stored in the Y-train dataset. You need to remember that in the X-train is basically the one we are using for the training purpose, and Y-train is basically storing the categorical value. So now once we run this, so here this one is basically showing the predicted value. So it's predicting that all the X-train emails, especially the first 3 and the last 3 emails, are non-spam, and it matches with the actual value. As you can see, if you compare this, these are actually comparing correctly. So that's one way you can predict logistic regression. You can predict emails detection using logistic regression technique with the Python programming language. And there are so many other techniques you can use, but this is a very basic example of applying logistic regression using Python with the help of the scikit linear model. There are some other models you can use for your logistic regression, but this is a very basic one that I just showed you today.
There are a lot of different logistic regression techniques that you can use for your data science work. It's imperative that you don't have to use the similar model that I showed you recently. But that doesn't mean that you cannot apply that, because this builds a backbone of your logistic regression exercise, which you can apply to build some different example. It doesn't have to be the email spam classifier. You can use it for some other different classification problem that you want to solve for your data science project. But what's the next step? Let's talk about the validation of the model in my next vlog, because you cannot use a model for your real application unless until you know the accuracy of the model. So the model evaluation part is very important, which I'm going to talk about in my next video. So till then, goodbye.